The Python string type is a class and has a number of methods. Technically, the int and float types are also classes in Python, but they do not have many methods, and those methods are not commonly used. We saw how to call methods using the graphics objects that the textbook author wrote. Here's an example. We create a graph_when object and a rectangle object. We then call the rectangle's draw method by putting the expression containing the rectangle, which is r in this case, followed by a period. Next, we write the name of the method the rectangle object supports, which in this case is draw, followed by parentheses. The draw method requires we send it a graph_when object that indicates the window in which to draw the rectangle, so we place a graph_when object inside the parentheses. The first string method we will learn is named split. The split method splits or separates a string into a list of strings. That is a key concept to understand. We get back a list of strings from the split method. Remember that strings are immutable, so splitting a string does not change the string. Instead, it returns a list of strings. You pass the split method the string of characters that indicates when to make a new item in the list of strings. A few examples should make this clear. We'll start with the string s1 that contains 4 words with a space between each word. Note there are 4 words and 3 spaces. We call the split method on the string s1 and pass a string to use as the separator. It returns the list of strings. Each time a space is encountered in s1, a new string is added to the list containing the characters until the next space. Once the end of the string is reached, the sequence of characters after the last separator are also added to the list. In this case, we end up with a list containing the 4 words, since the words were separated by a space in the original string. Here is another example. We have a string of 3 numbers separated by 2 commas. So when we split on the comma, we get a list of 3 strings. Note that even though it was a string of numeric digits, the list is still a list of strings. If we want to get a numeric type, we will need to iterate over the list and convert each item in the list to a number. The string we want to split is the one we call the string method with, and inside the parentheses we place the string we want to use as the separator string. Note the separator string is not part of the strings in the list we created. That string is effectively removed from the list of strings that is produced. There are no spaces in the list of strings in the first example, and no commas in the list of strings in the second example. If you do not pass a parameter to the string method, it defaults to splitting at any of the 3 characters, spaces, tabs, and new lines. These 3 characters are commonly known as white space, since on a white piece of paper the characters cause white space within the text. Using this default method can be useful when splitting a string that contains a mixture of spaces and new line characters, as you might get if you read a string from a file. The first example shows that if you try to split a string that contains words separated by a mixture of spaces and new lines, and split using the space character, it only splits at the space, so the last word of one line and the first word of the next line are not split. Using the default option of not passing any parameters works as we want. It creates a new string whenever any of the 3 white space characters are encountered, and none of those 3 characters will be in the list of strings. You can pass a string of multiple characters as the separator, but this is less common. In this case, it only splits when the entire separator string is encountered. In this example, we have a space and a comma after the word the, but only a comma after the word quick. There is a space and a comma after the word brown. If we split it by passing the string consisting of a space and a comma, we get a list of 3 strings, as it only found a space and a comma together in 2 locations in the original string. We'll look at a few of the other string methods in a later video, but now that we know how the split method works, we can write our program that decodes the ASCII encoded message we created in the previous video. I'll set a breakpoint after the input statement. Let's debug it and I'll explain how it works as we execute each step. I'll enter the string containing these numbers and press return. The program uses the accumulator pattern to build up the string containing the message. Recall that when adding numbers, we initialize the accumulator variable to 0 because 0 plus the first number resulted in the first number. When multiplying numbers, we initialize the accumulator variable to 1 because 1 times the first number resulted in 1. We are going to use string concatenation to build up the final string. We need to determine what string to use as the initial value for the accumulator variable. We need a value that when concatenated with the first character results in the first character. That means we need to use the empty string, since the empty string plus a character results in that character. To create an empty string, we use 2 sets of quotes with nothing between them. Now we'll step over twice so we're ready to start the for loop. we can see that values is a list of strings after splitting the input string. We used the default option to split on any white space, although since I entered the numbers separated by spaces, we could have split on the space character. Also note that we could have written this as for numString in inString.split instead of adding the extra variable values. I added the extra variable so we can see the result of it. Note that each item in the list is a string since the split method returns a list of strings. We'll step over and see that numString is assigned the first string from the list. We'll step over again and convert it to a number. Now we're ready to accumulate the result. Our initial value is the empty string. We use the chr function to convert the Unicode value 84 to its character, which is t. When we step over, we see that message is now the string t, since we concatenated the empty string and the string t. We'll step over twice to get the next value and convert it to a number. We'll now concatenate the t with the character for the Unicode value 104. When we step over that, we see the message is now th. We'll continue stepping over and get the next value and concatenate it to create the string the. The next value is 32, so we'll step over a few times and see that is the space. So after concatenating it, we have the with a space after it. I'm now going to show you another debugging technique. I'm going to add a breakpoint on the accumulator line, and then control-click or right-click on it and add a condition. I'll add the condition codenum equals 10, as I want you to see what happens when we process that value, but I don't want to continue stepping over each line individually until we get there. This means the breakpoint will only stop when the condition is true. Now I'll press resume, and you can see it processes all the characters up to the value 10 and then stops. Message is now the quick, and we're ready to concatenate that with the character for the Unicode value 10. We'll step over it and see that added the \n to the string, since 10 is the Unicode value for the new line character. Now I'll press resume again, and it will complete the program since there are no other 10s in the list. We can see the output of the message, and then it moved down to the next line where the new line character was inserted in the string. Conditional breakpoints can be useful when you know a program works up to a point, but doesn't work correctly starting when some value is processed. You can set a conditional breakpoint with a value, so it stops when you get to that value that seems to cause the program not to work. This allows you to avoid stepping over all the loop iterations, and then the program stops when the condition is true. Then you can execute it step by step to see what the problem is. There are two important points to learn from this example. The first is we now have a way to allow the user to enter as many numbers as they wish, without first telling us how many numbers they will be entering. We can input them as a string, and then split on the separator used when entering the numbers, and write a loop to process each number one value at a time. The second point to notice is that we needed to use split, since each number was not the same length. Some of the numbers I entered had 2 digits, and some had 3 digits, so we could not use slicing to grab each number, as we did with the earlier example where we had a string consisting of 3-letter month abbreviations. Since the month abbreviations were all the same length, and there was not a separator character between each one, we needed to use slicing rather than split to find the abbreviation for a given month. As we keep learning these new techniques, it is important to learn how to determine when it is appropriate to use each technique. You need to ask yourself which technique will perform the operations necessary to solve your current problem. Do you need to process each character one at a time? If so, then iterate over the list. Do you need to access substrings or portions of the list? Is it a single character at a known position? If so, then use indexing. Is it multiple characters at a known position? If so, then use slicing. Is each portion marked by a delimiter such as a space or a comma? If so, use split. If you then need to process each substring, you can iterate over the resulting list. Or if you only need certain portions, you can index or slice the list to access those portions. And of course, many problems will require a combination of these techniques. As you gain experience, you will be able to determine more quickly which technique or multiple techniques can be used to solve a problem.